Hi everybody, welcome back to the theater in Barcelona. My name is Dave Vellante and you're watching theCUBE's continuous coverage. This is day 3 of MWC 2025. Our 3rd year in this space. We're in Congress Square, stand CS60. And we are super excited to have Sarbjeet Johal in the house. He's the founder and principal analyst at Stackpane. He's a friend of theCUBE, member of theCUBE Collective, and when we go on events like this and field trips, you are out there, you're getting all the news, you're talking to everybody. I don't know how you do it. You're just like a madman and you're very active on social media and you really got your nose to the grindstone and your ear to the pulse. Welcome back. It's great to see you, my friend. Thank you for taking some time.
Thanks, Dave. I have some a heavy voice. Please bear with me. Yeah, show has been good. There's a lot of energy here. Busy, like a little refreshed in many ways.
Yeah.
AI, is becoming a little bit more tangible for telcos. We are not just talking about a POC, that we're going to the next level. So there's AI banner at every booth. The booths are like shrunk, as we talked about a little bit.
You were saying what, 20 to 30%
yeah,
shrinkage?
The booth size on average has been shrunk by about 20 to 25%. I mean, that's my guesstimation. So yeah.
Interesting. Why do you think that is? Is inflation, price pressure?
I think it's cost cutting actually, yeah. People look for ROI, like, hey, I'm going to spend this much, what do I get back? And it's more like a show and tell. It's just like it's like if you're here, you may not gain too much, but if you're not here, you will be bashed. So it's like you must be here, but you can have a little smaller footprint, yeah.
Okay, so I think you were in the keynotes on Monday.
Yes,
I didn't get to any of the keynotes this year. I know last year, the year before, we had some interesting conversations from the telcos, things like, we're investing in 5G, we have to figure out how to monetize, we can't let the over-the-top vendors take all the profits, and it seems like 2 years later, 5G, build out, okay, maybe not as much as we thought. The monetization hasn't been there. The narrative has shifted, as you say, to AI. What was the sentiment in the keynotes that you saw?
The sentiment is the survival. The telcos have to survive first, right? So a couple of common themes were, one was let the consolidation happen. So that was a request to the governments or the regulators of the whole world that, hey, let the consolidation happen. Only through scale you can innovate. Well, there's no magic in like it's not like Amazons of the world, they have some magic, they have so much scale, right? They have built the scale over time and scale gives you so many benefits, right? So economies of scale is one thing, but then there's a whole long list of benefits you get from that. And that's one. The second request was from one of the keynote speaker on day 1, Monday, was that, hey, don't tax us like we are tobacco. Lower the tax on us. We are utility, so you have to make us survive, and only then we can thrive, right? So those are a couple of things.
You see, a lot of people are talking about the hyperscalers, satellite, the hyperscalers putting in their own networks as a real threat to the telcos. At the same time, a lot of the back-end system, the BSS and the OS systems are moving to the cloud. All the cloud vendors are here. I was in the Google booth the other day. You couldn't even move. It's incredible. I didn't spend any time at the AWS booth and the Microsoft, busy. So I'm sure they're just as busy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they are growing their presence here. Actually, I've been coming. This is my 4th year, so I've seen their footprint is bigger, their offerings are bigger, their collaboration is bigger through SIs, global system integrators, as well as directly with the telcos. And I had good discussions with VMware, IBM, and AWS. So I had a great discussion with the gentleman at IBM booth. I spoke to Mr. Uppal, right? So Ajay Uppal, we talked about the new announcement there. But my discussion was like, hey, tell me, this gentleman is in telco industry for the last 20 plus years. So tell me which telcos are tech savvy? And he gave me a few names, right? So it's a Vodafone, Singtel, and there's Norway, I think. It's a smaller country, smaller telco. They're doing some good stuff. And I heard you guys talking about Dubai.
I'll give you another one, eAnd.
Oh, okay.
It's the Dubai telco.
Yeah.
Amazing. Sarbjeet, just to interrupt, sorry to interrupt, but they have not only core telco, they have a Netflix competitor.
Yeah.
They have, I think, a grocer. They have a financial services arm, and they're profitable, very profitable in all of those.
Yeah.
And so they've figured out monetization beyond just connectivity, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, actually, sometimes like when size might have something to do with it, or the sort of heavy-handedness of the government that they can make rules on the fly. Like it's not a democracy per se. So things take a while for democracies to move. So
we had Chris Lewis on earlier in the week.
Oh yeah, he's good.
He's quite good, and Zeus as well. And Chris was basically, has always said, look, telcos are really good at connectivity. They've never, eAnd is the sort of exception that proves the rule, but most telcos are not good at monetization outside their core. We've certainly seen AT&T try to get into the content business and struggle. And his point is, look, and Carolina as well. We just had Carolina on, and her premise was, look, all this robotics and all this other stuff is going to increase demand for the network, even though the cost per bit is still going to come down. There's capacity that exists where they can apply AI and other techniques that I know you want to talk about, like slicing the network to guarantee quality of service, that they can charge for. There are monetization opportunities in that core base of business. They don't have to be a Netflix.
Yeah.
They don't have to be an over-the-top provider. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think for some reason telcos try to hop onto the latest trend, whatever it is, at the time. So I remember during .com days, like the B2B e-commerce was flying high. I was part of an IPO during that time, and I know firsthand what all these telcos were coming to us and saying and doing, trying to do. Like, hey, we want to be net market makers. And we were one of the net market maker, right? So like creating the marketplaces for B2B commerce, right? So AT&T and Verizon, BT, NTT, DT all came to us. And then, okay, couldn't do it. Half-hearted approach. Couldn't do it. This thing got siderail.com happened, right? After that, they picked like, okay, we want to be cloud providers. I was at Rackspace back then. So I saw that firsthand. Like, okay, Verizon bought a cloud provider, right? And so did NTT, and they still have NTT data, right? They're still lurking around, right? So BT, DT, all of those guys try to do whatever is the latest in high tech, but with a half-hearted approach. As you said, they can do the core stuff, that telco moving the packets, and the other stuff. Like, they're not software shops. The biggest pattern I have seen in the last 30 years in this industry, actually, first 10 years I was kind of lost. I don't know what I was doing. But for the last 20 years, so I see that clearly now, like as I get older and I see more pattern, that there are some shops which are software savvy, and there are some shops that are hardware savvy. When you try to do both, there's hardly anybody who does both like great. They suck at one. And when they try to change, it's like a gender change, I think. That they go to a bad, surgeon, and they're messed up. They're neither this nor that.
It's like the movie The Substance. I'm not touching that one. Okay, that's interesting. Back to the hyperscalers.
Yeah.
They seem to be very well positioned here, and some of their ecosystem, we've talked about Snowflake and Databricks this week, both seem to be doing very well in telco, of course from a small base in their data players, so they don't have to worry about the stack unraveling. You got guys like Dell and HPE and Lenovo. That takes longer because the stack is so fossilized, and Open RAN and the reliability and viability of Open RAN has always been a big concern. So that just takes longer, whereas the data and the software side, and certainly the hyperscaler side, grabbing in, pulling in some of the back end systems, seems to be working. And then when you add to that all the edge strategies of the telcos, whether it's local zones, outposts, we heard about outposts today, that's still there. It's not going away.
There are new announcements around that.
Right, yes. New announcements around that. And so, Amazon's certainly not giving up on bringing their operating model, the cloud operating model, to the edge, and to the outer edge. Seems like hyperscalers are very well positioned, Sarbjeet.
Yeah, they are actually. They showed us today, we had an analyst tour, right? They're a smaller footprint appliance, which is, normal appliances are 1U or 2U, and they're long to the depth-wise, right? This is small, so they say you can put that onto the receivers in the field. So they're doing everything. They are penetrating into the back end, to the receivers, to the antennas. They're getting everywhere, and they're DPU masters, right? So what is voice now? It's data. It's zeros and ones, right? So you need to process it faster than anybody else. If you want to find the fraud, if you want to give better value to the customers, quality of voice, quality of service overall, and we know how much junk we get, right? Calls as well as text messages, right? So if you can weed out 90% of those on the fly, I mean, why not? Why won't people come to you as a carrier, right? So there are so many opportunities, and the whole goal is to bring more compute into telcos so we can do near real-time, if not real-time, analysis on the data. And now let's talk about the slicing of the 5G capacity and bandwidth, right?
VMware talked about that. Some others have talked about that as well.
Yeah, VMware talked about that, and that. So if you can't collect the data, you can't slice it. I mean, to slice something, you have to have it first, right? So you have to get that data, then you slice it, and only then you know who needs what capacity, where, when, and that has to be near real time, right? If it's not milliseconds, it has to be like 1 or 2 seconds. Like it's like more than that is like people move on, right? So my stuff is not working. I'm moving on. So they give me examples at the VMware. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I mean, example actually was this. Like I actually came up with one of my own. When I do videos like we are doing it right now, we are doing live, right? So
we are live.
If I get like 1 gig up speed, if I need it for 1 hour or 2 hours, I don't need it for most other time on my phone, right? But sometimes I need it. So if they can, I will pay them $50 an hour. I will. Like a lot of content creators will pay them $50 an hour if I get 4K up, right? For just 1 hour in a day.
We know,
right?
Yeah. So, I mean, connectivity is everything, right?
Yeah. So right now, how they bill us is like, oh, you get 1 gig up, you get it all the time for the whole month, right? It's not by hour, not by minute. So to do the pricing at the micro level, you have to do slicing of the that need, and I think big tech being next to these guys, and that's the only way they can succeed. Otherwise, they will be what they're.
I was looking through my notes. I'm trying to find it. I think it was G2 Patel from Cisco who was telling us they had an additional solution that if slicing there, great. I think it was G2, maybe but they have some like abstraction over that allows you to essentially virtualize the slices and reuse the capacity. Maybe it wasn't G2, might have been NTT, but a more software-defined capability above the slicing. My point is, and maybe this is what maybe it was VMware.
VMware
I think of it,
does that,
where they basically can virtualize the slices.
Vellosky, yes.
Yes, it was Vellosky, and that allows them to have even a dynamic slicing.
Yeah, actually, Vellante, what they announced is that you put your all 3 different flavors of networks, like the satellite, your fiber, and broadband, and your air, wireless, right?
Bring it all together, so, and consolidate your network traffic.
You treat
then
it
you
as
have
one.
the data.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Treat it as one, and then you manage it, and then you can slice and dice it, and then you can say, okay, now the crowd is watching the game, 49ers game, let's say, they are in the stadium. You need more capacity there as they leave, than in certain areas of the stadium where the restaurants or other areas that, move the capacity there. Yeah.
I asked you a year ago on this set at MWC 2024 what your thoughts were on NVIDIA.
Oh yeah.
And NVIDIA's Moat. You actually recycled that. I loved it. That you keep. You're one of the best at going back, remembering the like Throwback Thursdays, and replaying some of the commentary. And because a lot of the things that we talk about on theCUBE are evergreen. At the time, you and I think agreed that NVIDIA had a substantial moat.
Yes, yeah.
I think we talked about a decade long moat. Have you changed your thinking on that at all, or how has your thinking on NVIDIA changed over the past 12 months? What's your latest base case scenario on NVIDIA?
Yeah, I think at that point when we talked, I definitely knew that we would need more compute and more. But after DeepSeek came out, right, my faith shook a little bit. But just within a couple of days, I saw, we know that when something gets cheaper, we use more of that, right? So basic laws of economics, it hits you, yeah. So we will.
Jevons paradox.
Yeah, Jevons paradox, yes. Everybody's talking about that. So, including, of course, Jensen mentions it a lot. And then the 2 new scaling laws, then reasoning model comes from there. Like, okay, hey, when you're doing reasoning, actually, Jensen has said that you need 100x more compute. Okay. He didn't say up to, he said 100x more compute when you're doing reasoning models. And I mean, that blows your mind. I mean, it may not be 100x, it may be 20x, but
that's for training or for inference?
For inference.
For inference, on the inference side.
Yes.
Wow.
That's, those are crazy stats, and if you look at the spend from Elon Musk, what he built, he's keeping some of the cards to himself right now. He has very strong sort of cluster.
So back to NVIDIA. Your base case on NVIDIA, DeepSeek had you pause, but you still feel like their moat is intact.
Their moat is intact, yes. I believe that.
That moat is a function not only, of course, of their GPUs and their hardware, but also the surrounding software, not just CUDA, all the other stuff, Omniverse, all the tools libraries, and the like, and of course they're building out their ecosystem, and the fact that their TAM is expanding. We saw it, you were at CES, I wasn't, Savannah was there. We saw AI PCs, we saw robotics, we hinted at new next generation. We know Rubin's coming, we know there's something after Rubin. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with their big chips, with their SRAM. It's going to be interesting to see how they push InfiniBand and what they do with NVLink. All of these are engineering problems, and they're clearly a good engineering company.
No, they're doing great actually. I've spoken to before coming here, I was talking to F5. It's a great technology company. They're kind of not good at marketing.
Yeah, they're hidden. It's like
hidden gem. So yeah, we were talking about that. Like they have a NVIDIA partnership, and they are putting their F5 executable, if you will, which gets all the packets coming in on top of a DPU from NVIDIA. So they have a deeper relationship with NVIDIA. I mean, then I've spoken to a few other companies as well. I mean, everybody's talking NVIDIA, they're not talking about other chips, you know, so that...
Yeah,
NVIDIA
there's
is
all
a
this,
de facto
all this
standard.
other chip action. It's just, look, David Floyer has always been consistent on this. NVIDIA has the volume.
Yeah.
And volume in semiconductors is what matters the most in terms of manufacturability, getting on that learning curve. You know, it's Jassie's law, no compression algorithm for experience. Times 10 when you're talking about making chips.
And on top of that, you don't get trained people on the other stacks, right? So you have more people who are trained for 15 years on CUDA.
And developers, right? And they're the kingmakers, as you've always said.
They are most expensive resource on left side. So when you build stuff, they are number one most expensive resource.
What about Intel? I think you've seen I'm sure you have seen my proposal on spinning out Foundry, on how that could work, what the new cap table might look like. To summarize, basically what we've said is, look, they've got to spin out Foundry. TSM, maybe put some cash in. They just said they're going to invest $100 billion in the US, but maybe some of that cash goes to the joint venture. They have to bring over IP into the joint venture and skills into the joint venture. In exchange, they get a big chunk of ownership of the joint venture. I had them as high as 35, 40%. The CHIPS Act money, you just told me, I didn't see Trump's speech last night, but he basically said, I have it here. I'll tell you what he said.
I woke up around 1:30 or 2 a.m. and Trump was speaking.
He said, it says Intel is set to receive almost $8 billion in direct funding from the Act, with the money going toward training, childcare availability near Intel facilities, and the CHIPS Women in Construction program. Trump's quote, we don't have to give them the money.
Yeah.
We just want to protect our businesses and our people, and they will come because they won't have to pay tariffs if they build in America. So, wow, okay, and so Intel has this foundry, and they put all this money into the foundry. I think its board is saying, well, there's value there. We put in $100 billion, but it's essentially not worth anything. Nobody would buy it. So, you know, it's only worth what somebody would pay.
Yeah.
IBM, to refresh your memory, had to pay Global Foundries to take its microelectronics semiconductor manufacturing division. So it's a similar pattern repeating itself on a much bigger scale. But anyway, nonetheless, Intel should, for its contribution, have some stake in the joint venture, but not a controlling stake. US taxpayers with the CHIPS Act get all that money back and put it in.
That's what Trump said.
Put it into the joint venture.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, a part of the plan, is that the hyperscalers plus Meta plus NVIDIA must commit initial wafer volumes and put in 5 billion each for the first year, and then commit over the next 3 years wafer volumes between, for $3, $4, $5, $6 billion in commitments. Add all that up it's in the piece that we wrote, you get to about 100 billion. And that's still not enough necessarily, but if NVIDIA can bring the expertise and the skills and the IP, they can maybe bridge, and they get 18A, they get 14A, which 18A looks like it's doing okay, but the factories in Ohio are being delayed. 14A is risky, so NVIDIA with its IP and $100 billion and those commitments from hyperscalers can bridge to 14A or whatever they choose to do. Remember, Intel invents all this new stuff, backside power, gate all around. They were the first with NAEUV. Then TSM takes it and perfects it. And so all of that brings us to, what do you think of Intel? What do you think of that plan? Oh, the other part of the plan is, I really think Intel has to stay independent as a chip designer. I think they can do quite well. I was shocked to see Craig Barrett, his article in Fortune magazine, basically saying stay the course. Craig Barrett, I think you're, with all due respect, you had a tremendously successful career. I think your head's in the sand in this one. I don't think Intel can stay the course, or I think they'll go bankrupt trying, or they will become a second-rate player in advanced manufacturing.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, because getting to catching up will take like 3-4 years, and there's no time to catch
10
up.
years.
There's no time to catch up.
10 years.
Because it's not that TSMC is sitting idle, they're moving forward, right?
10 years, Sarbjeet.
Yeah.
It's going to take 3 fab cycles.
Yeah.
And each fab cycle is 3 to 4 years. It'll take 10 to 12 years to break even.
I mean, that's that's impossible.
Not possible.
Yeah.
So with TSM, that could be compressed, and that cash, that could be compressed. I was surprised. And then TSM's investment of $100 billion, who knows, that could be just blowing smoke up Trump's you know what. We'll see if that actually happens. Everybody's saying they're going to invest. Yeah. $500 billion in Abilene, Texas.
Those amounts will shrink, we know that.
Yeah. And they include all kinds of stuff that you can throw in there to make the numbers big.
They're doing double counting, like Microsoft already announced some number and it's part of the Stargate, and it's like...
Yeah, make the number bigger so it gets a headline.
Yes.
But nonetheless, do you agree that there needs to be advanced manufacturing on US shores?
Yes, definitely, yeah.
Do you agree that should be a US domicile company, whether it's a joint venture? I said that. That's the only possibility, really.
Yeah, I said that. Remember the first discussion we had, you said, no, it can't be TSMC, yes or no. It has to be majority owned by US. It can be joint, 2-3 companies, but
controlled by US interests.
Yes.
And then, do you agree that the hyperscalers plus Meta plus NVIDIA, who have a stake in this, should commit, maybe not cash, but cash in the form of wafer volumes, and do a pay and take? They got to take what they get, even if the yields aren't great.
I think they should. It's they are US companies, but you can't force them, right? The only way to force them is through,
Well, you can force them a little bit. So here's the other part of my plan.
Give them some slack on the regulation.
Give them some slack on the regulation. Dial it up if they don't play ball.
Yes.
I mean, look, the Trump administration shows that they could be bullies.
If anybody can do it,
I would say the carrot stick.
Yeah.
Hey, hyperscalers and Meta and NVIDIA, we'll give some concessions. It's tricky with NVIDIA because of the diffusion, AI diffusion, technology diffusion regulations. But what they could do is say, look, they could use the fuzziness of the AI diffusion regulation to their advantage. As you well know, there's 3 tiers. Tier 1 is friends, countries that are friends. Tier 3 is enemies. All the ones in between. India, your home country, Switzerland, Israel, these are not enemies. Yeah. These are our friends, so we certainly want them as our friends. So you could say to NVIDIA, look, we'll relax the restrictions on those countries.
I was going to go there.
But you have the capital, you have the balance sheet, you have the gross margins, you have the free cash flow, all you guys do. We'll ease up on the breaking Google up and breaking Amazon up and pushing Microsoft. We'll ease up on that. Play by the rules. Don't break the law. If you're a monopoly, don't break the law. But you got to put in the cash. This is too important for the country.
Yeah, they're going to buy anyways, so they will benefit as well. If they invest into something and it succeeds, they will get their money back.
I hope that, I know that piece, I got it, I did back channel into the administration, certainly did back channel into Intel's board.
That's well read, what you have.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's...
by the way, on that note, Mark Benioff, he replied, he actually reshared your...
oh yeah, Mark, with our agentic analysis.
Yes.
I got to give George credit for that.
Yeah.
A lot of that is George Gilbert, and I've been working for a while. George goes deep.
Yeah. And
educated me, and I help coordinate, I push, ask questions. I don't know, what do you think about Salesforce? You're a software guy. Savannah and I were talking. She feels like, yeah, it's nice, but it's confined to their only little part of the world. George feels like with Data Cloud and their harmonization engine and their sort of lightweight knowledge graph, they could actually attract other data and other application logic.
It's hard. It's hard. They are ERP 2.0 company, right? They're a CRM company, but it's a ERP, right?
Oh, we got to go.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, make your last point.
They are like an ERP company. They keep the data hostage, right? So the data doesn't flow easily out of Salesforce into other parts of the systems and vice versa. So it's a high climb for Salesforce, even though they're fighting with Satya. And Satya is also like exaggerating stuff, but then they're calling each other, names.
So much more to talk to you about. Yeah, right, the little urinary Olympics. So much more to talk about. We didn't get to GSMA. I'll give you the final thoughts.
Yeah, actually, coming back to the compute, like somebody told me that from one of the vendors that mobile data volume has exceeded more than 50% of the whole data movement worldwide. So mobile is huge, and we will do more and more. Anything which is moving around, it's mobile, right? It's not just mobile phone. It's cars, it's robots, it's airplanes, trucks, trains, everything, right? So yeah, I think data volume is going to increase, and we will need more and more of compute and near real-time analysis. We're getting spoiled from the B2C cases, use cases, and that's how it works, right?
So I'm so sorry, lost track of time. Sarbjeet, I love having you on. We could go forever. Great stuff. Okay, Dave Vellante for Sarbjeet Johal, Savannah Peterson, and Bob LaLiberte, as well as the whole CUBE production crew in-house. You're watching theCUBE's coverage, Day 3, MWC 2025. We'll be right back, right after this short break.